Hello traders, and welcome to another exciting edition of our weekly XAUSD and GBPUSD trade analysis. Okay, so I'm excited to be here with you as we dive into the dynamic world of forex trading. So in today's video, we'll be dissecting the price action for XAUSD and GBPUSD, identifying key and potential levels on the charts, and discussing potential strategies for the week ahead.
Welcome to another episode of our weekly focus with Chinex FX, where we do a top-down analysis of two pairs to ascertain their movement for the coming week, guys. So right here on my screen is GBP USD on daily time frame, guys. So as you can see here, you can see that price has been ranging in between these two zones, which is this resistance zone and this support zone right here. And if you followed us for our last week forecast, you will discover that we're expecting price to move upward from where it is to either respect this resistance zone or possibly break out of that resistance zone to continue upward, of which price did just as we expected. So for the coming week, guys, we'll still be expecting some upward movement for price to either give us a confirmation. I'll just zoom out here so we can see the zone I'm looking at. Since price has broken out of this very valid resistance zone, we'll be expecting price to give us a confirmation of any sort by either retesting this zone and thereby turning it into a support before continuing upward. But on the flip side, if price decides to continue downward, we're expecting price to either break below this support zone, give us a retest before continuing downward to the next support zones just below, guys. So guys, quickly we'll move over to the 4 hours time frame. Alright guys, so right here on the 4 hours time frame, as you can see on my screen, you can see that these zones are pretty very visible but not very different from the daily time frame. As you can see right here, price gave us a double bottom, which is a confirmation before continuing upward by breaking out of this resistance zone. This was a previous resistance zone. It came back to retest that zone before continuing upward. So guys, right here on the 4 hours time frame for GBP USD, so as you can see, this was a resistance zone which links directly to this zone, of which price broke out from. So we're expecting price to move downward, to retest this zone, thereby turning it into a support before continuing upward, guys. So we expect price to come down to retest this zone, thereby turning it into a support before continuing upward, guys. But on the flip side, if price decides to move downward from where it is, guys, we'll be expecting price to break below any of these two zones, before continuing downward. So if price decides to reverse from where it is, we're expecting price to break below these zones before continuing downward to the next support zone just below, guys. So quickly, guys, I'll still move over to the 1 hour time frame so we can get clearer picture of these zones that we've marked out on the higher time frame. Alright, so guys, as you can see, this is the 1 hour time frame for GBP USD. As you can see, the zones we marked out on the 4 hours on the daily time frame are very now visible right here. So as you can see, this is a support zone, of which price gave us a double bottom confirmation before moving upward. This is also a support zone, of which price has broken out from. So I'll quickly mark out this zone right here. This is also a zone we want to pay close attention to. It was a resistance zone before price broke out of it. So it's a zone we want to pay close attention to. So we'll be expecting price to come back to retest this zone, thereby turning it into a support before continuing upward. So I'll just draw that out real quick. So we're expecting a retest from price, confirmation from price before continuing to the upside. This is a very resistant zone on the 1 hour time frame, so we're expecting a confirmation before continuing to the upside. But on the flip side, if price decides to continue downward, we're expecting price to break below these zones right here. This is a support zone right here. This is also a very valid support zone. So we're expecting price to break below these two zones before continuing to the downside, guys. So I'll just quickly draw this out. So we're expecting price to break below this zone, give us a confirmation before continuing to the downside, if I thought there's going to be any movement to the downside. So generally for GBP USD, we're expecting price to continue to the upside, but first by giving us a confirmation before continuing to the upside. But on the flip side, if price decides to reverse, to change its trend, we're expecting price to break below these two support zones before giving us a confirmation to continue downward, guys. So that will be all for GBP USD. Let's quickly move over to XAUSD so we can also see some zones that we need to pay close attention to. Guys, welcome back. So this is XAUUSD on the daily time frame, just like we did on the GBP USD. We're going to do a top-down analysis of this pair so as to ascertain the zones we need to be looking at for the coming week, guys. So right here on my screen is XAUSD on the daily time frame. If you were following us for our last forecast, you discovered that we were expecting price to break out of this zone, and price did just as we expected. As you can see on my screen, price also came back to retest this support zone, right, this resistance zone, by turning it into a support, a very valid support zone. So for next week on XAUSD, as you can see, price has broken out of this very valid resistance zone on the daily time frame and also came back to retest it on the daily time frame. So for next week for XAUSD, we're expecting continuations to the upside for price. So we're expecting price to continue to the upside. On the flip side, if price decides to continue downward, we'll be expecting price to break below this support zone before continuing downward to the next support zone, which is right here. So we're expecting price to break below this support zone, give us a confirmation before continuing downward to this support zone, or possibly break out of this support zone to the next support zone just below, guys. So quickly we'll move over to the 4 hours time frame so we can get clearer pictures of these zones we've marked out. So this is the 4 hour time frame on XAUUSD, as you can see, guys. So this was the breakout on the daily time frame, and then price came back to retest it right here. You can also see that this is a very valid support zone right here. So guys, I'll quickly mark out other zones that we need to be paying close attention to on the 4 hours time frame. This is a resistance zone, a newly formed resistance zone. So, and this is a low on the 4 hours time frame. So for next week, guys, on XAUSD, as you can see, this is a recent high or a resistance zone that price formed after breaking out of this resistance zone, and this is also a low or a support that price has formed up. So we are expecting some continuations to the upside. If price decides to break above this zone right here, we are expecting price to continue upward. This but on the flip side, if price decides to break below this low right here, this support zone right here, we're expecting price to move downward, to respect this support zone, or possibly break out of the support zone to the next support zone just below. So on the 4 hours time frame, this is a valid resistance zone, and this is a very valid support zone, of which price decides to break out of any of them for the coming week on the 4 hours time frame, then we'll be expecting continuations to the upside if it breaks out of this resistance zone, or possibly continuations to the downside if it breaks below this support zone right here. So quickly also move over to the 1 hour time frame so we can also see some zones that we need to pay close attention to. Alright people, so this is the 1 hour time frame for XAUUSD. Price came to form a new support resistance zone right here before dropping downward to respect this zone right here, of which it broke out from, thereby turning it into a support. So for the coming week, guys, we are expecting price to continue, not very different from what we expected on the 4 hours time frame. We still expect price to continue upward, to either respect this resistance zone before dropping, or possibly break out of it, give us a confirmation before continuing to the upside. On the flip side, if price decides to reverse from where it is, we'll be expecting price to move downward to break this newly support zone. Also break this support zone right here, this low right here, before continuing downward, that is continuing below to the next support zone just below. So generally for XAUSD, we'll be expecting price to continue upward by breaking above the newly formed resistance zone on the 1 hour time frame before continuing upward. But on the flip side, if price decides to break below the low on the 1 hour time frame, break below the support zone on the 1 hour time frame, we'll be expecting price to give us a confirmation before continuing downward, guys. So guys, thank you for joining us for this week's forecast. That will be all. So do well to like and subscribe, and also turn on the notification to our YouTube channel so as to get notified weekly on when we post our weekly forecast. And also do well to join our Telegram channel. The link will be displayed on the description of the video below. We offer a lot of premium services of which I'm sure you might be interested in, and also a lot of giveaways in our Telegram community of which I'm sure you might want to take part in. Do well to join us for the next forecast, same time, same channel. GM guys.